Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. So this is the Huawei Mate XT. I don't think this phone needs any introduction. This is the world's first tri-fold phone. I put quote marks around tri-fold because even though Huawei loves to call this thing a tri-fold, it is really a bifold. You have a device that starts out as a 6.4-inch phone. You unfold once to get a 7.9-inch square-ish mini tablet like most other foldable phones out there. And then you have a second fold that turns into a 10.2-inch widescreen tablet. This phone is not new. It came out last September. I already made a first look hands-on video back then. And I've had this review unit for about 3 months. And I have to say that even 8 months later, the novelty of the trifold, bifold has not worn off. The wow factor has not worn off. I still find myself randomly unfolding this guy, even if I'm not trying to do anything, I'm just unfolding it just to look at it and to just kind of play with it. It's very impressive to me, and it still feels really awesome in the hand. Particularly, I've put a good wallpaper on this guy because I think all the Huawei wallpapers that come with the phone, they don't look good. So I have a good wallpaper here that really shows off the brilliance of this OLED panel, and it has this like matte coating over it, the panel. So when you look at it, especially from certain angles, it doesn't even look like a screen. It almost looks like it's a painting. It looks like it's an illustration on a 10.2-inch notepad or something. Now, unfortunately, I can't use this phone as my daily driver. I'll explain that later. But I just find myself sitting around at home or at the coffee shop. I like to take this out to the coffee shop, just kind of like marveling at the technology. And definitely, this phone still attracts a lot of attention. People come up to me all the time to ask me what this guy is. So in terms of hardware, absolutely brilliant, a technological breakthrough, a revolutionary mobile product that 8 months later has not worn off. Like, it's not a gimmick. This is legit, and I'm confident this form factor is going to continue in other devices. Like, eventually we're going to have an iPhone that opens twice to become an iPad, or maybe the tech will get crazier and crazier. Maybe it will open 4 times. But the point is, this is not a gimmick. This tech is here to stay because it makes our lives better. So let's take a look at the overall hardware. Like I said, the screen is absolutely brilliant. One single piece of flexible OLED panel. It's very well built. Like, I am not babying this device. I don't baby my phones anymore. And it just feels very robust. It doesn't feel like it's going to break. Even when I unfold the phone a lot of times, I unfold it with one hand, which I know a lot of people wouldn't dare to do with the foldables. But I do that, and it's like the screen right now, no damage. It looks absolutely flawless. I will say the crease, it's a little bit more visible than some other foldable phones, but that's because of the trifold nature, and that's only if you have light shining on it at certain angles. When you're looking at it straight on, it's just a beautiful looking panel. The phone weighs 298 grams, which is a little bit heavy, especially if you wear basketball shorts a lot like I do. So if you put it into your basketball shorts, it does kind of weigh down one side a little bit more than the other. But if you're like a grown adult and you wear jeans or trousers with belt, it'll be fine. It's just, if you walk around in basketball shorts like me, then it is a little bit heavy. As for the thickness, because when it's folded, it's 3 layers stacked together. So it is a little bit thicker than usual at 12.1 millimeters. But honestly, the thickness, you kind of get used to it, because I think most modern day, at least the top tier phones, the Ultra and the Pro Maxes, if you slap a case on it, it's almost 12 millimeters anyway. Like, for example, right now I'm daily driving the Vivo X200 Ultra with a camera case on there, and really with the camera case on, the thickness, it's about the same as the Huawei Mate XT. So while the weight is still a little heavy, the thickness, really, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you get used to it. So like I said, I've been in love with this hardware since day one, and I really wish I can make this phone as my daily driver, but I cannot, and it makes me really pissed off with the US government. I mean, I think 99% of you already know what I'm about to say, but I guess for the 1% of you who don't know, I'll have to explain it anyway. So Huawei, 8-9 years ago, they were one of the biggest phone brands around. They were selling the phones worldwide. Unlike some Chinese brands, like Vivo, Huawei wasn't releasing some phones in China, some phones in only Southeast Asia, some phones in Europe. Like Huawei, basically every flagship phone they put out, it was going global. And for them, global was all of Europe, not just like select markets in Europe, and all of Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. And actually, Huawei was about to enter the US market. I believe 2019 or 2018 CES, Huawei had a deal with AT&T that they were going to announce that they were going to enter the US market, sell their phones in the US via AT&T. That would have been huge. That would have officially made Huawei phones available worldwide. But at the last minute, the US government stepped in and killed that AT&T deal. Like apparently, the US government really put pressure on AT&T to tell them to cancel the deal or else. Like they were getting really threatening. And then later, the US government officially sanctioned Huawei. So the sanction prevented Huawei from buying Google license from Google. So that means the phone could no longer run Google mobile services, which means it couldn't run Google apps. And then also, the sanction prevented Huawei from building the latest silicon. Because before the sanctions, Huawei used to build its own chips, and Huawei would build it on TSMC fabricators. It's a company in Taiwan. There are apparently like not that many machines worldwide that can make the latest silicon. So they're all in Taiwan or like Korea, and they all use the same patents that the US own. So the US have a right to say, we're not allowing Huawei to use these machines anymore. So for a few years, Huawei could not make its own chip. And then Huawei could only buy from Qualcomm, but the US government was like playing games. They didn't let Huawei buy the newest chips. They could only buy the 4G version of the Qualcomm chip that was a year old. So eventually, Huawei just decided to work on its own chip making machines, and Huawei actually succeeded and started making its own chips again. And when this happened like a year and a half ago, the US government was in shock because the US government had done everything it could to prevent Huawei from making chips, but Huawei was able to do it. So starting about a year ago, Huawei started using its own chips, but because Huawei was very new to it, the chips that Huawei make, they were still a generation or two behind the best chips that TSMC makes. So the chip in here, Kirin 9010, is a 7 nanometer silicon. So it is technically like 2 generations behind the chip in the newest iPhones or the newest Samsung or Vivo devices. So the US government basically tried to cripple Huawei in software, the lack of Google apps, and in hardware, it couldn't use the most powerful chips. But honestly, I don't think the chip being less powerful is that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, sure, if you care about benchmark numbers, it is jarring to see that the benchmark numbers here are about on pace with like a 2-year-old Samsung phone. But at the same time, if you're using the phone as a day-to-day machine like I have, just jumping into Instagram, watching YouTube, typing, texting, all of that, this phone absolutely performs fine. Like, I feel like silicon have more than plateaued in power for like 99% of people. Unless you're actively editing videos on this guy, I don't think you're gonna notice this chip being less capable. Like, PUBG runs on here perfectly fine. Instagram runs on here perfectly fine. As for the Google apps, there's actually a workaround here now too, at least for 90 or 80% of people out there. And that is MicroG. So MicroG is a third-party open source software that spoofs the Google mobile services. So basically it does the same thing as Google mobile services. It's just not officially from Google. It's an open source software, so it should be safe because, you know, people can check the software, check the code and everything. So I have MicroG installed on here, and after that, you can then install Google apps, and it just works perfectly fine. Like YouTube here works perfectly fine. And in fact, the integration is so seamless with Huawei software that, say, if I jump into the photo gallery, for example, and I find a picture right here, and I tap on the share icon, I can share this photo directly to Google Drive. Like, the Google Drive icon is here in the share menu. I can share to Google Drive, tap save, and it uploads to Google Drive. So Google Drive almost feels like seamlessly part of this software, even though it shouldn't be able to run on here, but MicroG fixes that. Likewise, when I opened PUBG for the first time, I was able to log in to my Google account using Google Play Games to play PUBG. So the MicroG workaround basically fixes the Google issue for 80 or 90% of people out there. But unfortunately, it still does not fix it for me, but I'm in a rare case. And that's because I'm a YouTuber who needs to run business off my YouTube account. Like right now, the YouTube account makes most of my income. So this is my livelihood. So for me, I still am a little bit scared to put my main Google account onto MicroG because there's still a slim chance that Google can ban your account because you're using unauthorized Google services. Now, to be fair, this has never happened before. I've searched around Reddit, searched around the internet. I've never seen a case of someone saying they have lost their account using Google G. But it is still a possibility that I don't want to risk, that I cannot risk, because I will lose my entire career if my Google account gets deleted. But I am a specific case. For 99% of people out there who are not YouTubers, you can put your Google account on there and it's fine. Like if Google deletes it, you can just start a new Google account. It takes 5 minutes. Or even if you don't want to risk your main Google account, fine. Use a backup Google account on here and you'll still be perfectly fine. And that's what I have done. I have a backup Google account running on here. I just can't have my main Google account on here. And because I don't have my main Google account on here, that means I cannot access my YouTube account on this phone, which prevents it from being my main daily driver. I definitely can use this as my secondary phone, but I just cannot use it as my main phone because of my specific niche case of being a YouTuber. A lot of apps are optimized for this larger screen, like Instagram, for example. It's really cool. So I have an Instagram reel open right here, right? If I tap onto the profile, it opens the profile in the second pane. So now I can scroll through this person's profile while I'm watching the reels. And then if I want, I can even tap into a reel and then just watch 2 reels at the same time. I am someone who's a little bit addicted to Instagram reels, so I find this very cool. A lot of times I'm just sitting like on the toilet, just kind of like watching 2 Instagram reels at the same time. It's just very fun. And also, the really cool part is if you're watching an Instagram reel and then you turn the phone sideways, it stretches to take advantage of the whole 10.2 inch screen. Like, you know how some Instagram reels are very visually appealing? Like, you know, like a photographer's Instagram usually have really good photos and videos like this guy. Like, it just looks awesome to be able to watch an Instagram reel on such a large screen. And that's the same story with everything. Netflix, YouTube, any type of video or photo, it just looks good to be able to watch it on a large screen. Like, once you do that, you don't want to go back to a smaller screen. So like I said, the wow factor has not worn off. I still find myself just looking at the screen going like, damn, this thing is awesome. And it just makes me pissed off with the US government, because if the US government didn't put the sanctions on here, my SIM card would be in here. It would be my main phone. It would be my daily driver, because I'm a digital nomad who's always traveling and I like to work coffee shops. And this guy really can be my all-in-one work device. Like, it could be my phone, and then when I get to a coffee shop, I can open it up, pair it with a Bluetooth keyboard, and write articles on this. And then keep in mind, if the US government didn't sanction this phone will be running on the newest, most powerful silicon. That means I can edit videos on this guy too, because Kirin chips back before sanctions were very powerful. So this really could have been an all-in-one device for me. And so that reality of one device doing everything would have happened for me already if not for the US government. And I know there are going to be people out there who will comment saying, oh, like the US government had to ban Huawei because they were a security threat. But the thing is, the US government had never shown evidence of that. Like, to this day, not 1 ounce of evidence have they shared. And on top of that, if Huawei is such a threat, then how come the US government's rulings on Huawei, it's inconsistent? Like, for example, how come the US government don't let Huawei use Google, but then they let Huawei use Microsoft? Because Huawei's laptops can run official Windows and they all use Microsoft apps perfectly fine. So what is it? If the company is a threat, how come they can work with Microsoft but not Google? And likewise, if the company is a threat, why did the US government allow Huawei to buy chips from Qualcomm, but just the older chips? So you see what's happening here is really the US government is just playing a game. They're just fucking with Huawei. They basically want to be like, oh, you can buy chips, just buy from Qualcomm, but you have to buy an older chip, you know? And even if you don't care about Huawei phones, like, for example, like, some people don't like EMUI, and I've never been the biggest fan of EMUI too. Even if you don't use Huawei phones, what the US government did to Huawei still affects you as a phone fan. Because remember, Huawei is about to enter the US market. If Huawei entered the US market, that puts a lot of pressure on Samsung, because Huawei phones have really, really good hardware. Imagine if the Huawei Mate X foldable phones were available in the US starting in 2021. Do you think Samsung could have gone on cruise control with the Samsung Fold series? No, they would have had to work harder. Likewise, if the Huawei like Mate 50 Pro was in the US stores right now, you think the S25 Ultra can come back with like no camera changes from last year? No. Samsung would have had to put more effort into putting new cameras. And guess what? If Samsung put more effort into the phones, that also affects Apple. Then Apple and Google will also have to put more effort into their hardware. And also, if Huawei has successfully entered the US, then guess what? Maybe Vivo and Xiaomi would have followed suit. So there's an alternate reality where if the US government didn't do what they did, not only would Huawei be in US right now, the Vivo X200 series would be in the US, and that will put pressure on Apple and Samsung. The iPhone 17 will probably be a better iPhone than what we're going to get. The S25 Ultra would be a better phone than what we end up getting. So what the US government did to Huawei affected the entire mobile landscape. So anyway, back to the review of this guy. So the camera system here, you have a triple lens camera system. It's really good for a foldable phone, but still falls short of the best slap phones, obviously. You have a 50 megapixel main camera with a variable aperture. So there's a physical shutter blade that open and close to change the aperture from f1.4 to f4. Now, I've gone on record saying the variable aperture doesn't really do much for me. But the main camera is good, as you can see from these photos here, and video stabilization is good with the main camera too. The zoom lens, you have a 12 megapixel periscope zoom lens, 5.5x optical zoom, or about 135 millimeters. So that's a very long zoom. You do get sharp details. I do find that there's almost like no natural bokeh that you usually get from a good zoom lens, because the sensor size here, it's really small at 1/3 point something, so it's tiny. With a real zoom lens with a large-ish sensor like from Vivo, or any of the Chinese ultra phones really, when you take a zoom shot, you get natural bokeh, background compression. You don't quite get that here. You are getting a magnification of the thing you're taking pictures of, but just the depth isn't there. But it's still a really good zoom lens for a foldable phone. You can still get a 5.5x shot or even a 10x shot that looks respectable. And then the ultra-wide camera here, it's a little bit weak, but you know, I think that's to be expected with an ultra-wide camera in a foldable phone, like especially a phone as thin as this. I believe unfolded, it measures like 4.3 or 4.4 millimeters. So the fact that they fit a triple lens camera system here with a real periscope is still an amazing feat of engineering. You also have a selfie camera on the front, obviously, in the hole punch, but you're better off taking selfies with the main camera because of the foldable nature. You can do that. As for the rest of the software, so I'm not the biggest fan of EM UI, like I said before. I think the look is a little bit outdated, and I don't like not having an app tray. But Huawei's multitasking system is very robust. Like, you can open an app and you swipe from the left, you open up this menu, then from here you can drag into the app to open a split screen. You can resize the split screen window however you like. You can open an app in a floating window mode, and you can resize this window to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit larger. You can swipe the window completely out of the way and just bring it back whenever you want. So it's a very robust, very intuitive multitasking system that I quite like. I just ultimately wish there was like an app tray, and then the notification panel isn't like split from the control toggles. I'm just not a huge fan of EMUI, but the software works fine. And the only complaint I have with this phone is the battery life, because the battery in here, it's a 5600 milliamp hour. It's not that small, to be honest, but you have to remember you have a 10.2 inch screen. And I think because you have a 10.2 inch screen, you're always tempted to open it up and use it, to read manga, watch videos, play games. So I find that, you know, I haven't even really taken this phone outside all day because it's not my daily driver, but even using it at coffee shops and at home, I see the battery drain faster than I like, because I guess I'm just using it in the large screen tablet mode so much. But the good news is there's a charger that comes with the box, 80 watt. It'll charge the phone, you know, just plug in 8-9 minutes. It will add enough meaningful juice to get you through the rest of the day. And also, for those of you who are worried about the right side of the screen being exposed at all times, there is a case that comes with the phone with a flap that covers the right side, so that will give you a lot more peace of mind. So yeah, this is the Huawei Mate XT. Absolute breakthrough in mobile engineering, an absolute breathtaking piece of kit that I still find myself marveling at 8 months later. I really wish I can use this as my daily driver, but the freaking US government, man. So my only hope now is for other brands, like maybe Honor, to release something like this, but running like a software that's not restricted by the US government. But what I'm excited about is this phone, it's definitely not a gimmick. It's going to start a trend that other brands will follow. Like I said, I am confident eventually one day we will see a trifold from Xiaomi, from Oppo, from Apple, from Samsung. Maybe not Google. Google just like the hardware is stuck like 10 years behind everybody. But we'll get one day an iPhone that turns into an iPad, and I think everyone will be using one of these in like 2030 or something. So this phone is a glimpse at the future. So yeah, this is the Huawei Mate XT. I love it, man. I just wish I can use it as my daily driver. So that's about it for this video. I have a lot more content coming, including a full review of the Vivo X200 Ultra, and I'm going to the US to attend WWDC. So stay tuned for that. I mean, that's if I'm even allowed in the US these days, because if you watch the news, the US government has been stopping people who have been bad-mouthing the US government, not let them in, you know? I mean, I'm a US citizen, I have a US passport, so maybe I'm safe, but who knows, man? I've been trashing the US government in this video, so maybe I'll get banned. But if I am allowed in, I will be at Apple campus at WWDC, so stay tuned for that. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.